team. I am the Honorable Karim,
which we have made available to honorable members and distinguished senators. There are 6 documents we have prepared in response to all the issues for which, some of the issues for which our clarification is required. And we are here, and I guess distinguished chair and co-chair, we will follow the agenda of the meeting. So if I have the permission of the chairman, I go straight to the first agenda, which is the preparation for Edo and Ondo governorship election. But if I don't,
On the permission of the committee.
Thank you very much, distinguished. So, distinguished senators, honorable members, I refer us to documents number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Document number 1 is the timetable for the Edo governorship election, which we released almost a year ago. I will speak to them, to the document, the first document, along with the document for the Ondo governorship election. We outlined 13 activities leading to the election as required by law, from the publication of notice for the election to the conduct of election. And so far, we have implemented 8 activities. We are on the 9th activity, and not one activity has been shifted by 1 day. And we have implemented those activities both in Edo and Ondo seamlessly. Number 9 is in the case of Edo State, is the submission of the names of polling agents by political parties, which according to the timetable is at the end of this month on the 30th of July. But in the case of Ondo State, item number 9 is the same submission, but it's going to be on the 30th of September. As we speak, we have 57 days to the opening of polls in Edo State, and we have 113 days to the election in Ondo State. Is the commission prepared for the election? We are prepared for the election. And I must also say that this commission in particular has a history of having conducted 3 governorship elections in each of the 2 states. We conducted the governorship election in 2016 in Edo, in 2020, September, and now by God's grace in September 2024. In Ondo, we conducted the election in 2016, October 2020, and by God's grace on the 16th of November this year. So these are states where we have conducted previous elections successfully. So how far with the preparations and the situation in the 2 states? I visited, led a team of commissioners to both Edo and Ondo states, and we interacted with the stakeholders, particularly political parties. And we also had a meeting with the security agencies. In terms of our preparations, we don't anticipate much problem, in spite, in the case of Edo, of the unfortunate flooding in our office, not for the first time. In 2020, we actually operated from a rented facility. But this time around, thank God, the act of God came early. So we have enough time actually to respond and to conduct the election in our own facilities, within our own premises. So the election will hold within our own facility, within our own premises. What is our concern? Our concern for the Edo State governorship election, just like any other state when elections approach, is security. When we were there, the political parties raised, and one of the political parties raised an issue in Edo about the likely deployment of the ESSN, the Edo State Security Network. But immediately we received the complaint, we headed to the office of the Commissioner of Police and summoned a meeting of all the security agencies in Edo State, and all of them, as members of ICSES, were at that meeting. And at that meeting, we agreed that we are going to meet with all the political parties in our office, which we did so the following day. And the Commissioner of Police told us and told the party leaders that he will take up the matter with the state government. The issue at that time was the ongoing continuous voter registration. And since then, I am not aware of any official complaints from any party or candidate to me on the role of the ESSN. So I believe that the Commissioner of Police must have spoken to the leadership of the ESSN. So far, so good. I said so far, so good, but we have 57 days to the election. We've conducted the continuous voter registration. A few of the registered voters require validation. We went public and even published the names of all those that we require to come back for validation. I think 82 or so in Edo and 164 in Ondo. As of yesterday, we started the validation for these voters on Monday. As of yesterday, we achieved 72% success of the validation. They have been coming forward. Fortunately for us, we have their telephone numbers, and we also have their other contact addresses, so we're able to reach out to them to be validated. We are doing so because after the registration, as distinguished senators and honorable members know, we are required by law to display the registers for claims and objections by citizens, and also to do the ABIS, the Automated Biometric Identification System. We are not happy with the quality of the biometrics for these 246 registered voters in the state out of over 260,000. So the number is actually 0.03%. But it's the right of every registered Nigerian to be able to vote seamlessly during election. And it is our responsibility to ensure that every citizen is given the opportunity. So we have gone back to these citizens. We hope that by next week, we'll publish for Edo State the final outcome of the continuous voter registration, integrate this to the register of voters, and as required again by law, each political party fielding candidates will have the complete register of voters for Edo State, both Edo and Ondo, but for Edo State, 30 days to the date fixed for the election. Each and every political party fielding candidates will have the complete register of voters for the state. All the number of registered voters on the basis of polling units and wards and local governments will be made available to each political party. This is a legal requirement, and we are going to do so. Our second concern as we approach the Edo election is what we have always grappled with. For the Commission, it is more difficult to conduct off-cycle governorship elections than it is for us to conduct general election. These off-cycle elections are very, very difficult and very challenging for us, for the simple reason that you have one state conducting governorship elections, and all the political parties will form their campaign councils, and you will deploy all the governors, all the honorable members in support of their colleagues. It becomes very challenging for us. But in a general election, all of you will be in your various constituencies fighting your own battles. But this one, you will descend on a small constituency, which makes the management of the process extremely difficult. Even accommodation becomes a very difficult issue. In Oshun, for instance, I was stranded because the politicians actually took over all the hotels when we went for the signing of the peace accord. So I managed to get one room. The following day, I had to rush back to Akure to fly back to Abuja. I didn't even stay in Oshun. So it becomes really very difficult. Pressure on all facilities. Thirdly, the other challenge is close to the election, particularly when campaigns start. Power of incumbency is used to the advantage or disadvantage of parties and candidates. And this is a clear violation of the provision of the Electoral Act that prohibits the use of power of incumbency to the advantage or disadvantage of any political party or candidate, whether it is outdoor advertising or or campaign in the state media, or the use of state facilities like stadia and public spaces in public buildings. It has been an issue in previous elections. So far, so good, but it is now that the campaign is heating up, and this matter is likely to come up. But so far, without outside these concerns, we have been doing well. The third document I presented to you is the list of the final list of candidates for the Edo governorship election. In Edo, there are 17 political parties fielding candidates, and there is only one female candidate nominated by a political party. 16 other candidates are all male. There is no person with disability in Ondo State, in Edo State, nominated by any political party. So we have a complete list of all the candidates, including their positions, whether they are governorship or deputy, their disability status, their ages, their gender, and their academic qualifications. And the same thing, document number 4 for Ondo State. In Ondo State, we have 17 candidates. There's no female candidate, unfortunately, in Ondo State. All the 17 political parties nominated male candidates. But the good thing is that there is one person with disability as candidate of one of the political parties in Ondo State, and that is the governorship candidate of the ADC party. So we have shared with you, distinguished senators, honorable members, the list of the candidates for the election. In addition to the timetable for the 2 elections, we still have 4 activities outstanding. We are on activity number 9 now, and we'll continue to track. Campaign started in the 2 states, and campaigns are going to end as provided by law, 24 hours to the date fixed for the election. In the case of Ondo State, is going to be on the 14th of November. Thursday, 14th of November, all campaigns must cease. But in the case of Edo State, is going to be on the 19th of September. The election in Ondo is on the in Edo is on the 21st of September, while in Ondo is on the 16th of November. Again, we are open domestic civil society organizations or even international in the field for those who will be in Edo for the election will have an ID card, which will have the name of the observer, also a QR code, and you can use your smartphone to actually read the QR code to confirm if the QR code is actually from the commission or not. We'll soon start printing the voters register for the 2 states. We normally do the voters register in triplicate, 2 in black and white that we paste at the polling units, and we keep 1 as spare. And then the color register is what is used for accreditation of voters on election day. In Edo, in terms of the election technology, we had a challenge when our office was flooded. The beavers machines deployed were substantially soaked in water. But the good thing is that we were able to recover well over 3,500 of the little over 4,000 beavers machines in Edo State. They are all in a working order. We are lucky that this is an off-cycle election, so we can rely on resources from neighboring states. So we have called for additional machines from Abia, and the machines arrived Edo yesterday, 58 days ahead of the election. So we are very good to go on that score. So there should be no issues with the deployment of the beavers machines for the election, spare in case it is required on election day, and also for training of the ad hoc staff ahead of the election. If there are issues that I've missed out, I'm prepared to respond to this irrespective of our preparations for the two governorship elections. For the riverine locations, we have some in Edo, but in Ondo, we have two local governments that are completely riverine, Ese Odo and Ilaje. We have had history of deployment to these locations for the election, including the provision of life vests for all INEC officials deployed for the election. All INEC officials will be kitted with life vests when we deploy them to riverine locations. We were very unfortunate to have lost some policemen in Bayelsa on their way to southern Ijo years ago, not during the recent elections. So the commissioner decided to extend the same facility to all security officials accompanying INEC officials for the election. All of them will be provided with life vests. And we're also going to extend the same to civil society organizations as well as the media. As for the agents who are supposed to be in the locality, I believe the parties and candidates will take care of their own agents. So we have requested the security agencies to tell us any numbers that they require, so that if we don't have enough in Ondo and Edo State, we can always rely on the neighboring states for additional live vests. We don't have to get new live vests from elsewhere. The commission has enough facilities. So that is what we have been doing so far for Edo and Ondo. I cannot be exhaustive, but if there are questions or issues or matters arising, I am prepared to respond as much as possible, and the commissioners are here to chip in where my memory fails me. Thank you, Co-Chair. Yes. Instead of taking them item by item. So we are done with one, which is preparations for Edo and Ondo. The second one is the off-cycle election budget and releases so far. I think by the off-cycle election budget and releases, the Commission is referring to the forthcoming off-cycle elections. But we are faced not only with the two major off-cycle elections in Edo and Ondo, but we also have these by-elections outstanding. Right now, we have 7 vacancies to be filled, 7 by-elections to be conducted. Just to refresh our memories, we have outstanding or pending by-elections, House of Representatives, Papura Garki, Federal Constituency of Jigawa State, Chikun Kajuru, Federal Constituency of Kaduna State, Bagwai Shanono State Constituency in Kano State, State Assembly, Ibadan North, Federal Constituency of Oyo State, it's a federal constituency. Then we have Kana 2 State Constituency of River State, where an honorable member of the State Assembly passed on. But in case some of you ask, let me preempt you by saying that we are aware, but we have not been formally informed about the existence of vacancy for Ahoada East 2, where a member of the State Assembly claimed to have resigned and he has accepted a position in the executive. But there has been no communication from the State Assembly. And we cannot act until there is an official declaration of vacancy by the State Assembly. But for all the federal constituencies, we have received declaration of vacancies, including the last 2. The Honorable Speaker conveyed the declaration to us after your valedictory meeting. So we are good to go on these elections. Our budget for 2024, which was presented and defended before you, makes no provision for the conduct of these off-cycle elections, let alone the unforeseen and very difficult to budget by-elections. Because the by-elections are mainly as a result of the act of God, or sometimes resignation. It's very, very difficult to say so. If you ask me in June last year, when the National Assembly was inaugurated, that we'll be confronted with 18 by-elections by July 2024, within 1 year, I would have said, no, it's not possible. But it has happened. And as I said in my opening remarks, in the last 2 weeks or so, 2 members of the House of Representatives passed on. So each time that happens and a vacancy is declared, we're under obligation to conduct a by-election. So confronted with the challenge that there's no provision in the budget for the off-cycle elections, we, as a commission, cannot submit an appropriation bill to the National Assembly. What we do is to approach the executive, and we have approached the executive. Approval has been given, and we have been assured any moment from now, money will be released for the election activities in Edo, Ondo, as well as the 7 outstanding by-elections. But as far as that is concerned, I have no releases to report, but assurances that funds will be made available for the Commission to conduct the elections. We have gone very far with the pre-election activities. Is the remaining pre-election activities, the election activities, and the post-election activities, which have to be funded. So approval was given for the conduct of these elections, and the by-elections, 5 out of 7, because at the time we made our request, 2 vacancies were yet to occur in the House of Representatives. So in terms of that, we are confident that money will be released for the election. We always jokingly say that politicians will always find money for elections. So we are confident that funds will be released for the election. The third item is the 2024 budget and releases so far. Document number 6, in what I shared with honorable members, distinguished senators, gives the performance of the Commission so far. This is the performance of the Commission as at yesterday, the 24th of July. You will recall that you appropriated the sum of 40 billion to INEC as our statutory budget for 2024. This has nothing to do with elections. INEC is a commission. We have over 15,000 staff. We have one of the largest workforces in Nigeria. And we manage some of the largest facilities of any parastatal or agency of government in the country. We have offices in each of the 774 local government areas. Anywhere you go in any local government, you are likely to see buildings owned by 2 agencies, the police and INEC. There will be a police DPO in each local government, and then there will be an INEC EO, the electoral officer in each local government. So we have 774 facilities. In addition to our state offices, the headquarters in Abuja, the zonal stores, the Electoral Institute, we manage one of the largest real estates. So this budget goes into the provision of staff salaries and what have you. But when we defended the budget, we informed the committees that what was appropriated, because it was an envelope budget, will only barely cater for personnel emoluments and social contributions. There is no other provision. So in terms of our performance for the 40 billion, I have reported in document number 6, we are on the first line charge. INEC, the National Assembly, and the judiciary are on the first line charge. So immediately the National Assembly appropriates the budget. The Ministry of Finance breaks our budget into 12. Every month, they give us 1/12 of the budget for the year. And for the last 7 months, since the beginning of this year, the Ministry of Finance has been releasing the sum of 3.3 billion to the Commission, which is 1/12 of the 40 billion. And as at yesterday, we have received all the monthly releases to the Commission, coming to 23.3 billion out of 40 billion. That is 58.3%. What is outstanding is 16.6 billion, amounting to 41.67% not released. In any case, they don't release ahead of time. They release usually towards the end of the month. So in terms of our performance, we are doing very well based on what has been appropriated. But whether it is adequate to take care of all our activities, foreseen and unforeseen, is a different matter, of which I have consistently engaged with the distinguished chair of the Senate Committee and the honorable chairman of the House Committee. And we believe that they are going to help us to overcome these challenges. So on general issue of funding for the Commission, I think this has answered part of the question on the issue of funding. Then finally, you wanted to know the position of the Commission on what the Joint Committee calls trending issues surrounding the Supreme Court judgment and local government elections, the position of the Commission. I would have loved to be asked by the Commission, by the Joint Committee, if there is any specific thing you would like to know about the position of INEC. But so far, we have had 3 broad arguments or positions canvassed. 1, transfer responsibility for the conduct of local government elections to INEC. The question is, and that's probably what this Joint Committee wants to hear, if that is done, can INEC cope? I will come back to that. The second proposition we have had is that no, there should be a new Federal Electoral Commission for local government elections. And then thirdly, there is another argument that no, leave the state electoral commissions to conduct local government elections in the spirit of federalism, but find a way of ensuring that they improve on the conduct of local government elections. Right now, the law has not been amended. The same constitution that creates INEC also creates the state independent electoral commissions. So it is up to the National Assembly to amend the law to transfer that responsibility to INEC. If that is done, the question is, can INEC cope? Because we have also been saying that we should be unbundled. That is true, but we have never said that we should be unbundled beyond the conduct of electoral activities rather than elections. There are 2 activities we handle. There is what is called electoral activities, not necessarily related to elections. It includes voter registration, registration and regulation of political parties, prosecution of electoral offenders, delimitation of constituencies, and what have you. These are electoral activities. And we believe that some of these responsibilities can be handled by other agencies. And this point has been made consistently since 2008 by committees established to reform our electoral processes, beginning with the West Commission in 2008, West said that some responsibilities should be removed from the Independent National Electoral Commission. And the same argument was made by the Lemu Committee in 2011, and by the Innamani Committee in 2018, and also by members of the National Assembly who sponsored individual bills for the creation, especially of the Electoral Offenses Commission and Tribunal. I don't want to digress into the Electoral Commission and Offenses Tribunal issue, but if any distinguished senator or honorable member asks me later, I will now say what I think about the Electoral Offenses Commission and Tribunal. So, if this responsibility for conduct of local government election is transferred to INEC, can INEC cope? The answer is yes, INEC can cope. What are we? By definition, INEC is the independent National Electoral Commission. But right now, we do national elections, we do state elections, we do local government elections. A National Electoral Commission may be expected to handle only the Presidential and National Assembly, but we also do governorship elections, we do state assembly elections, and we do the area council elections in the Federal Capital Territory, the only part of the country where INEC conducts local government elections. So if we are asked to do these elections, yes, we can. And our track record actually proves that we can do it. Take the case of the Federal Capital Territory. And I would like to say one or two things about the Federal Capital Territory local government elections. There are 6 area councils in the FCT. So there are 6 chairmen of area councils, meaning chairmen of local governments. But there are 62 wards in the FCT. Each ward is a councillorship constituency for the election of councillors. And this is one part of the country where INEC has conducted local government elections. And it has resulted in the following. Number one, it is perhaps the only part of the country where local government elections are held regularly. As and when due, elections are held in the FCT. Number two, there has never been a caretaker committee for any area council in the FCT. INEC has been conducting the elections regularly. Number three, there is stability of tenure or security of tenure. It used to be 3 years, but in 2022, the National Assembly amended the Electoral Act to provide for a 4-year tenure for area councils in the FCT. So they enjoy security of tenure. Number four, no single political party has ever won elections in all the constituencies in the FCT. Not one. In fact, what is interesting now is that out of the 6 chairmen of the FCT, actually the constituencies are evenly split between the APC and the PDP. APC has 3 area councils, PDP has 3 area councils. In fact, what is equally very interesting for me for the FCT is that, take the 6 area councils, you have the most urban area councils, Amak and Buari. And then you have the most rural, which is Kuje. You travel on a motorcycle for hours actually to get to the last polling unit, because some people think that the FCT is just like Buari and Gariki and Metama and Kuje. No, Kuje is a territory. So Kuje is actually one of the most rural. The opposition party right now, which is the PDP, won in Amak, won in Buari, 2 of the most urban area councils, and won in Kuje, the most rural area council. The APC won in Gwagwalada, in Abaji, and Kwali. But interestingly, even in Gwagwalada, where the APC are the ruling party won, PDP took 6 out of the 10 councillorship constituencies. So there has never been any election where one party has dominated everything in the area councils. If you take the councillorship election, it's very interesting indeed. 62 councillors in the FCT. APC has 19, which is 30.6%. PDP won in 43 councillorship constituencies, which is 60.4%. So with this is perhaps what has been encouraging many Nigerians to say, that if INEC is saddled with the responsibility of conducting local government elections, the same thing will be replicated, and it's good for our democracy. But as I said, the same section of the Constitution that creates INEC also creates the SIEX. So until the Constitution is amended and you transfer the responsibilities to the Commission, this is what our position is. In any case, if you transfer local government elections to INEC, what it means is that you are going to transfer almost 1,000, no, not 1,000, 10,000 constituencies to INEC. We have 8,809 wards. Each ward is a councillorship constituency. We have 774 local government areas, and each local government has a chairman. So if you add this to the existing 1,591 constituencies where INEC conducts elections, it's well over 11,000 constituencies. But the elections may not be held all in one day. So this is what we do at present. INEC conducts elections at polling unit level. The first layer of collation is the ward. And the wards are actually the councillorship constituencies. So once we move to the ward level, we just appoint a returning officer to make returns at that level for councillorships. And you move to the local governments, then you make return for the chairmanship election. And in that case, you also make return for some members of the House of Representatives and State Assembly. You go to the state and you make return for the state governors. And then at the national level, you make returns for the presidential. So in terms of capacity to do it, INEC can do it. We have been doing it in the Federal Capital Territory. We have no issues. But if the decision of the National Assembly is to amend the Constitution to settle INEC with that responsibility, then we need an engagement with the National Assembly. There are certain consequential amendments that have to be done for us to be able to handle those additional responsibilities. For instance, who is going to fund the 10,000 new constituencies that INEC will be saddled with? So there is need for a discussion to determine who is going to fund it. You know, will the federal government continue to fund the elections for the states? I have had so many propositions, but these are matters that we need to discuss. And secondly, distinguished senators, honorable members, you have to do something about the conduct of by-elections. If INEC is saddled with additional 10,000 constituencies, and I just read out the statistics for by-elections for just federal and state constituencies in the last 1 year. If you have 10,000 constituencies, we'll probably be doing by-elections every week. Who is going to fund the by-elections? INEC has its own suggestions that we are going to put forward to the National Assembly on the conduct of by-elections. But when the time comes, we'll discuss these matters. But broadly speaking, if you ask us, can you handle the local government elections? We'll say, yes, we can handle the local government elections. When is it going to happen? When you amend the law and empower the commission to do so. Thank you, distinguished senator. Thank you, honorable members. Much, co-chair. Let me start with the chair of the House Committee. I think the summary of your submission is, can INEC operate, or the SAICs operate under the supervision of INEC? They can't. Irrespective of what the Electoral Act 2022 says, they have an independent existence which draws from the Constitution of Nigeria. So a body established by the Constitution cannot be subordinated to another organization based on the provisions of the Electoral Act. So the truth is that they have a constitutional basis for their existence. But you are right also in talking about the provisions of the Electoral Act. And the section of the Electoral Act you referred to did not come out of the blues. It was actually a recommendation made by INEC to the National Assembly to amend the Electoral Act to make that a reality. And I'm very happy that the honorable gentleman from Oyo was a member of the technical committee in the last assembly. And you know, we had series of meetings in Abuja, outside Abuja. I remember the one in Lagos, the retreat. And then the series of meetings we had at the Hilton here before finally we arrived at the 2022 Electoral Act. The only meeting point between INEC and SAICs under the law is on the registration of voters. And particularly that INEC should make available to the state electoral commissions the register of voters for the conduct of local government elections. You know, the voters register is primary, is key to the conduct of elections. Without a credible register of voters, you can't have credible elections. And INEC is the registrar, official registrar of voters. So we make this available to them. But we on our own thought that we could work with SAEX to help them to improve, just as INEC itself has improved over the years. And so a forum was created called FOSIECON, Forum of the Independent State Electoral Commissions of Nigeria. They have a leadership, the leadership has been interfacing with us. One of the things we agreed that we are going to do long ago was to create a model law for the conduct of local government elections. Election is a process governed by law. If you subject everything to regulations and guidelines, you cannot have good elections. So we realized that in most of the states, they actually had no law to govern the conduct of local government elections. When we asked for the laws establishing the SAEX, the only thing you see is the appointment of chairmen and members of the commission, that's all. Every other thing they do is based on regulations and guidelines, which is at the discretion of the commission. So we recommended to the National Assembly that can we now make the Electoral Act 2022 applicable in equal force to the local government elections? And that's the reason why those sections that you referred to have been imputed into the law. But they have been saying, yes, the National Assembly can make laws, laws for the order and good governance of the country. But as an independent tier of government, we also need to look at that law and try to domesticate it. Because it's not that the National Assembly is trying to enforce a sugar cube equality on the management of local government elections around the country. So some of them actually have ignored the Electoral Act. Can INEC enforce it? If that's the question, INEC cannot enforce it. Aggrieved parties can go to court to say that section of the law is violated. Because if INEC tries to enforce it, what will be the legal basis? Because we don't regulate the state electoral commissions. They have independent existence. So the courts will say we are meddlesome interlopers crying louder than the bereaved. So, but what has been happening, and I had a long discussion with the chairman of the Senate committee on this before the last local government election in Oyo State, where the Oyo State Electoral Commission requested for the BVAS machines to be used for the conduct of local government elections. And when it suits the state electoral commissions, they said, no, the law says that we should follow the provisions of the Electoral Act. And the Electoral Act makes it mandatory for voters to be accredited electronically. So it has to be by means of the BVAS. So how do we conduct elections without that? But I've always told them that in following the Electoral Act, the first thing is not the BVAS. You can't pick and choose sections of the Electoral Act that you wish to observe. It goes back to the heart of the matter. The current Electoral Act said that INEC must release the register for elections not later than 360 days before the date fixed for the election. So they come to us to say, our election is holding next month, give us the BVAS based on the Electoral Act. I said, no, you should have released the timetable 360 days earlier. You know, they're always clever by half. And then, most importantly, when you tell them the protocols associated with the use of the BVAS, the state electoral commissions cannot meet those protocols, and they don't even have the resources to do so. So the commission, because of these issues, decided that the only thing we are going to avail to the state electoral commissions is the register of voters as provided by the Constitution. You have independent existence. Go and conduct your election the way you think you can want to conduct election. Don't drag INEC into it. They used to ask us for ballot boxes. And people don't make the distinction between INEC and SAEX on election day. They go to a local government election and see INEC ballot box. They say INEC again. It's not our election. It's local government election. And what is the use of an electoral commission which doesn't even have ballot boxes? Basic facility.
Chairman, because we have to get this thing in the right perspective. You see, you are talking about
Cross River. You said you saw a name on the list, final list of candidates, and under qualifications, you only saw court order. But if you noticed, under disability status, there's nothing. Age, nothing. Gender, nothing. And we put court order. This is what happened. When we released the timetable, we gave the political parties a fixed period for the conduct of primaries. They conducted the primaries and nominated their candidates. Thereafter, under the same law, they have room for withdrawal and substitution of candidates. And this particular party did not withdraw or substitute its candidate, the running mate to its candidate, within the time provided in the timetable and schedule of activities released by the commission. So it's not only that party, other parties as well were in that category. So we told them that you can't operate outside the provisions of the timetable. They then approached the courts, and court said, INEC, accept. Section 287 of the Constitution said that INEC must obey the orders of court, even if we disagree with the orders. From the trial court to the Court of Appeal to the Supreme Court. So there is nothing we can do. We put court order because it was by order of the Federal High Court. Now, if the person substituted feels aggrieved and approaches the Court of Appeal, and the Court of Appeal sets aside the judgment of the lower court, we'll put the name of that person and put court order until the matter gets to the Supreme Court. But the most important thing is that the party you have pointed out is on the ballot, and there are candidates. But as to who is going to be the running mate, let the courts decide, even if it's done after the election. We'll issue certificate of return to the person declared the rightful candidate by the party. So it's in obedience to court order that we just put court order. Then, Honorable Kabir Al-Hassan, thank you very much for your kind words. We really appreciate. Very rarely do you hear this kind of thing. You know, what you hear is INEC is always bashed. Thank you very much. Then there is a comment by an honorable member on security in Edo, saying that the situation seems to, I appear to have said that the situation seems to be addressed, but I was only speaking in the context of my last visit to Edo State on the issue of registration of voters and the involvement of the ESSN. But in our Electoral Institute, we have a whole section dealing with monitoring of threats to elections, and also in our P&M department at the headquarters. So we keep monitoring all the security trends until the election is conducted. So I was only speaking in that context, not in the context of what happened close to the airport last week. So I wasn't speaking generally about that. On ICT, they said issues of controversy, what have we done differently with regard to technology in the off-cycle elections? By now, I believe Nigerians would have appreciated the tremendous improvements we have made to the BVAS technology for the purpose of voter accreditation and results upload since the 2023 general elections. Consistently in the elections conducted for the governorship and state assembly in 2023 and thereafter, we have achieved 98% success when it comes to voter accreditation using the BVAS. If the fingerprint fails, then the facial. Consistently, we have succeeded in doing that. We have also succeeded in actually transmitting and uploading results to the IRF portal as appropriate. And technology is something that you keep learning from the experience of what happened, and you keep improving it. Remember, in the case of the 2023 general election, it was the first time we were uploading the election on a nationwide constituency, which was the presidential. But thereafter, we've learned valuable lessons, and Nigerians should expect to keep seeing tremendous improvement. And we are very proud to say also that actually, if you look at it, perhaps INEC is the most improved public service agency in this country. Just look at the elections conducted not long ago and the kind of elections we are conducting today. So sometimes I hear people say, oh, INEC again. And when they finish criticizing INEC, they say local government elections. Transfer the responsibility to INEC. So, you know. So, INEC is this, INEC is that, but give it more work, you know. So, you talked about connection of our offices to some of what the Ministry of Communication is doing. And I also like the way you started by talking about the ICT controversy, and people sometimes even where controversy is needless, people make issues out of very little. Nigerians are very good at litigation. We are litigation-happy people. Even where the case is so improbable, people go to court. So, but in terms of our relationship with other government agencies, particularly ministries and parastatals, we tend to be very careful indeed. Very careful indeed. Because if we work with the Ministry of Communication on anything, tomorrow you'll hear people say, they are already working with a minister appointed by someone who is a candidate in the election. So the election is compromised. But no harm. We have been interacting with them. We have interacted with Nigerian Communication Satellite, Nigerian Communication Commission, which is under the Ministry of Communication. If there are things of value that INEC can borrow from the activities of this agency, we'll do so, but domesticate this to our activities and own it as a commission. Rather than on election day, you see officials of one ministry going to be fiddling with our communication facilities in the field. We cherish our independence. We would like as much as possible to cooperate with everyone, but to maintain our independence. As a distinguished senator, we talked about political parties, cases of unlawful exclusion, a situation where the logo is missing. Actually, this problem has been addressed by the Electoral Act 2022. Distinguished senator, you will never hear this kind of case again. It didn't occur in 2023. No, but even if it came up with people saying that we omitted their logo? Yes. No.
Indeed, but what happened was this. The judgment, of course, was that the judgment went against them.
Aha. So, in fact, if it happens, the judgment will go against them, and I will tell you why.
And Labour Party.
I will tell you why. I will tell you why. I said that people approach the court for the most improbable case. So this is one of the improbable cases that you have mentioned, where people can go to court, but they lose in court. And this is the reason. We approached the National Assembly, the last National Assembly, to amend the section of the law which says that the omission of the logo of a political party amounts to unlawful exclusion, and therefore the entire election is subject to nullification. It was replaced by a very progressive provision which mandates INEC to write all political parties and give them 2 weeks' notice to come and inspect the materials that will appear on the ballot papers of political parties, even before we print. And the same section of the law said that 2 weeks after, if that political party does not complain to INEC in writing, it is deemed to have waived its right to complain about unlawful exclusion. For the Edo election, we did it 2 weeks or so ago. And it's only yesterday that we are trying to finalize matters relating to the sensitive materials for the election. And if there were issues, and some parties have raised issues, we have addressed the issues. So this matter was before, but now even if they go, because people like to go to court, the provision of the law is very clear. We invite each political party by means of letters. And then if 2 weeks later they don't write to complain, the law says it is deemed that they have waived their right to complain. After all, it's just the logo of the parties. And all logos are first approved by the Convention of Political Parties. It is the first item on the Constitution of Parties, and it is also approved by INEC. Any logo not approved by INEC is just a logo for show. I hope I've responded to your question, distinguished senator. Okay. Then the reassurance, a distinguished senator asked whether INEC will not rely on manual collation. Collation procedure is clearly provided for by the Electoral Act, and will continue to apply the provisions of the Electoral Act. So I will suggest that we look at the provisions of the Electoral Act irrespective of how election results are to be collated, to be guided by that provision. Honorable from Oyo, you talked about number of observers and cost is at no cost to INEC. Not a kobo is given by INEC to any political party, to any observer, or to any media organization that deploys journalists for elections. They are on their own. What we do is to give them ID cards, that's all. Beyond that, we have no obligation towards any observer group or media organization. Then he talked about issues relating to the registration or deregistration of political parties. These are very clearly governed by the provisions of the Constitution and will continue to apply the provisions of the Constitution, irrespective of parties that fail to meet the threshold for continuous existence, or parties that fail to make the threshold, associations that fail to meet the threshold for registration as political parties. It says that in a presidential election, if a party didn't secure a quarter of the votes in one state, or a quarter of the votes in one local government in a governorship election, or fails to win in a constituency, be it senatorial or House of Reps or state, that party is eminently qualified for deregistration. And as you said, many political parties after the 2019 general election satisfactorily met the requirements for deregistration. And they were deregistered satisfactorily. Then Chair Senate Committee, you said I should comment on the Electoral Offenses Commission matter. I think we have been on this as a people and as a nation for a very long time. The responsibility for prosecution of electoral offenses is vested in INEC, but we have been honest to complain that you have vested a responsibility in an agency that has no capacity to discharge that responsibility. Are we doing it deliberately so that nobody is penalized? You said INEC should penalize electoral offenders. The first condition towards prosecution of electoral offenses is arrest. We don't have police to make arrests. Secondly, investigation. You have to investigate the alleged offense to get the evidence that will lead to successful prosecution. We have no capacity for investigation. And then you said we should prosecute electoral offenses. Not only that, some of the electoral offenders may be officials of the commission, regular or ad hoc. How do we prosecute ourselves? And that's why we have consistently supported the introduction of the Electoral Offenses Commission and Tribunal, so that all electoral offenders, be they people in the field or officials of the commission, regular or ad hoc, who violate the law, will face justice through the instrumentality of that commission or tribunal. Many members of the National Assembly, senators, honorable members, supported this bill. And I don't know how many times we appeared at public hearing for the introduction of the Electoral Offenses Commission Tribunal, but nothing has been done. In fact, in the last assembly, the bill was passed by the Senate. I don't know what happened in the House, but now you are saying that it has to start de novo. So I want to appeal to distinguished senators and honorable members that the ball is in your court. I beg you in the name of God to speedily pass the Electoral Offenses Tribunal and Commission bill. You know, it will restore sanity to the processes, but don't leave the responsibility to a commission that has no capacity. There are a number of things, I will mention two, that are real impediments. The first one is, when election is conducted, like the one forthcoming in Ondo, police will deploy policemen from different states of the country because they don't have the capacity, the manpower. So you deploy a policeman, say from Birnin Kebbi to Benin for the election. He makes an arrest. After the election, he goes back to Birnin Kebbi. And from Birnin Kebbi, he may be transferred to Akwa Ibom. So 6 months later, the case comes up, and they ask for the IPO, the investigating police officer. The case would have gone stale, because the policeman will be struggling to remember what happened then. And secondly, the Electoral Act said that all these offenses should be prosecuted in the jurisdiction where the cause of action has arisen. In this case, it's going to be at the state high courts. And we have been having problem in some of the states where the matter is being prosecuted at the State High Court. The Attorney General and Commissioner of Justice enters a nolle prosequi. That's the end of the case. Particularly when the offender comes from one side that they could influence the case. And once he enters nolle prosequi, there's nothing that we can do. So, but it saddled us with the responsibility of prosecuting those electoral offenses. It will be nice if we can finally implement the recommendations of UWAIS 2008, Lemu Committee 2011, Kent Namani Committee 2018. The time has come for us to do so. But otherwise, if you saddle us with that responsibility, it's going to be very, very difficult. We have been working with the ICPC and EFCC. I think we've achieved some success in prosecuting 102. But sometimes also, the number of cases that we hear the security agencies will announce may not be the same number of case files that eventually come to the commission. Then finally on this matter, you need to look at, when you establish the electoral offenses, to establish time frame for the prosecution of electoral offenses. Right now, for post-election cases, it's 180 days at the High Court, 60 days at the Court of Appeal, 60 days at the Supreme Court. So in 10 months, under 1 year, matters are disposed of. There is no such time limit for electoral offenses. So cases may be going on for 5, 10 years. And because they are prosecuted in the jurisdiction where the cause of action has arisen, if you engage a lawyer or private counsel from Abuja, he goes to a remote part of the country to prosecute the offense. The judge will tell him that, oh, the court is not sitting today. Come back in 1 month. He goes back after 1 month, say, no, we are going on vacation, come back after 3 months. He goes back after 3 months, oh, the case is adjourned for one reason. So all these adjournments, and we don't have the resources to keep pursuing this matter. So we now engage with the Nigerian Bar Association. And we have an understanding with them for the prosecution of these offenses. De novo, not de novo, pro bono. They are doing that pro bono for us, and they were able to identify lawyers within the locality. So you don't have to have a lawyer going from Abuja to Oyo, Abuja to Birnin Kebbi prosecuting offenses. But it takes a very long time to make progress because they have no time limit for the prosecution of these offenses. So they go on and on and on and on and on for years. Then, Chairman Senate, you talked about delimitation of constituencies, and you mentioned the cases of Oyo and Delta. The Constitution saddles the Commission with the responsibility for the delimitation of electoral constituencies, creation of polling units and allotting voters to them, and also the creation of wards or registration areas. In the case of constituencies, the law says that INEC shall delimit constituencies at an interval of not less than 10 years. Quite often, I hear people say this, including honorable members and distinguished senators, that the law says that INEC shall delimit constituencies every 10 years. That is not what the law says. The law says INEC shall delimit constituencies at an interval of not less than 10 years. So we can do it actually after 100 years. We are still within the law. But the same Constitution said that we can do it actually in less than 10 years. The Constitution says INEC shall delimit constituencies following the creation of states. And no new states have been created in Nigeria since the last creation of states in the 90s. The reason for doing the delimiting constituencies is that once you create states, you alter the boundaries of existing states. And if you alter the boundaries of existing states, you have to alter the boundaries of constituencies. Because no honorable member of the House, no senator represents 2 states. The boundaries of your constituencies are confined within the entity of a state. So once you create states, we'll have to do the adjustment. 2, the Constitution says following a population census. The last census in this country was in 2016. We can't use the data set from 2016 to begin to delimit constituencies. But thirdly, the Constitution says we can do it by an act of the National Assembly. So you just pass the law and give us the money. We'll do the delimitation. we have no problem with that. But the last time the constituencies were delimited was under the Gogo Jack in 2006. Since then, we haven't succeeded. But coming specifically to the two issues you raised in the cases of Oyo and Delta, yes, I'm sure there were cases where communities, state governments went to court to argue for the restoration of constituencies that were in existence before but are no longer in existence. In the case of Oyo, I think there must have been a judgment of either the High Court or the Court of Appeal. But we are on appeal at the Supreme Court. And we have over 60 such cases, not just a handful from Oyo. But in the case of Delta, I remember the case of Aniocha 1. Yes, in Aniocha, the Supreme Court said we should go and create a new state constituency. And we did so. 3 years ago, we went, delimited the constituency, created the maps, redistributed the voters to the two constituencies. We created Aniocha 1, Aniocha 2, and submitted our report to the National Assembly. Because the Constitution says that any alteration to the boundaries of any constituency must be approved by the National Assembly, House and Senate. So we are waiting for the National Assembly to approve that, for that to come. But 3 years ago, we are still waiting. So if you don't approve, there is nothing we can do. We do our
If we can have a copy of it, because
the distinguished senator and a former member of the House of Representatives have been on this matter. And the distinguished senator wrote me. And we have not acted because I was waiting for the distinguished senator to get in touch with me so that I can take him through these processes. Because, you know, the way he wrote the letter is as if that we are sleeping on our job. But we are not the ones sleeping on our job. No, we did it. We created maps for Aniocha 1, Aniocha 2, and made a submission to the National Assembly and copied the chairman, Senate Committee on INEC, chairman, House Committee on Electoral Matters. The letter was addressed to the clerk. We copied the Senate President and the Speaker of the House of Representatives that INEC has done its own part. We are functus officio under the law until the National Assembly approves. And the National Assembly under the Constitution is the two chambers, Senate and House, not one chamber. So we are waiting for the Senate and House to approve. We'll then, in obedience to the order of the Supreme Court, do so. We did so in Benue, Mata and Ushongo in Benue. And there's also another one, Oju State Constituency. So we have been obeying law, orders of court. But let me also say this, because many honorable members and distinguished senators are interested in this. The argument always is that some constituencies were suppressed and therefore they need to be restored. With due respect, there are no suppressed constituencies in Nigeria. Because the argument is that under the 1999 Constitution, some constituencies existed, but they no longer exist under the 1999 Constitution, therefore they have been suppressed. No, you can't take a part of a defunct constitution and bring it to life under a new constitution. Whatever happened under the 1979 Constitution is gone, dead and buried. In terms of delimiting constituencies in 2024, we can only rely on the provisions of the current constitution. So there are no constituencies that existed at that time. If that is the case, why should we stop in 1979? We should go back to 1922. There are constituencies in Calabar and Lagos, I restore them. So when we're talking about the 1999 Constitution, it's just the 1999 Constitution, full stop. And the Constitution has made provision for creation or delimitation of electoral constituencies. And we follow that. INEC offices and local government secretariats. You know the way the commission was established? It was under the military. So it was, the commission commission needed to have offices in all the local government areas. So local governments were asked to give INEC offices. And now there are 774 local governments. And we have moved out over 700 to our own facilities. But in a few places, I must say that some of the local governments are still in local government secretariats. And we have been making efforts. The problem always is the budgetary constraint to build new offices and also land for that purpose. So if communities can give us land and the National Assembly appropriates the resources, we'll be happy to move all the local government offices out. And you may also have noticed in your constituencies that the local government offices are in varying states of dilapidation. So we are making efforts. The best time we can have resources to do the local government offices is during general election. And once you have a general election with these billions given to INEC, people say, see INEC again with billions. But people should look at the responsibilities that we discharge. When we do election, every voter gets 5 ballot papers. And we print the ballot papers to currency quality because of the absence of trust. And then we move officials and materials to locations. And how many polling units do we have in Nigeria? Over 176,000 polling units and increasing. But we also produce the ballot papers equal to the number of registered voters. So whether the turnout is X% or whatever the percentage is, we must produce equal to the number of registered voters. Because you can't say because the turnout in the last election was 30, 35%. So we're only going to produce 50% of the ballot papers. When the law says that before voting starts, in every location in this country, people must inspect the facilities. Have you brought pyros, twine, ink? Do you have the envelopes, the forms, the ballot boxes, the voting cubicles, the rubber stamp, the ink pads, even before voting starts? So we proudly say in INEC that every Nigerian who goes to the polls on election day is an auditor on the work of INEC. I'm not sure that there is any senator or member of the House who went to his polling unit and saw a Bako super sack or carton instead of a ballot box. And when we request for money from the National Assembly to buy ballot boxes, for instance, 100,000, we must buy 110,000. Because between one general election and another, some of the ballot boxes will not come back. Because it's 2 weeks between the two elections. And you have no time to procure these boxes again. So whatever we do, we have to have a markup of 10% for the two elections. Or even more. Thank you very much. Or even more. Then finally, distinguished Senator, you talked about the register of voters. That is the register of voters bloated when you compare voter turnout with the voters register. And when we also compare the fact that there are some people whose names may appear more than once on the ballot papers, but you will on the register. But you may recall that before the 2023 general elections, we removed 2.4 million registrants from the register. No, we'll still have, but what I want us to understand is that the core of our voters register is solid. The core of the register is solid. It is the largest database of citizens in Nigeria, one of the largest databases in Africa. Over 90 million Nigerians, complete with their biometric photographs and fingerprints, all the 10 fingers. You don't have this anywhere in Africa. And it includes all manner of people, from those in the executive, to distinguished senators and honorable members, to our justices, to security services, to students, to journalists. Everybody is there with his fingerprints and the photograph. What we can do, like is done with every database, is to continue to improve it. So there is no way you can have a database that is 100% foolproof. If you take dead people on the register, for instance, who can give any guarantee that a few days to the election, citizens won't die. But the most important thing is to ensure that ineligible persons don't vote in an election. And that's why we introduced the beavers. Unless you wake up someone from somewhere to come and authenticate his biometrics or do his facial, dead persons can't vote in our elections. And we introduced the facial. The only way a voter cannot be accredited using the facial is where that voter forgets his face at home and comes to the polling unit without a face. So the most important thing is to find out, is there any dead person that has voted in an election? That will be a major source of concern for us. But we'll continue to improve on the credibility of the register, because the register is at the heart of elections. But to begin to call Nigerians with every election to come and register is just a wasteful thing. I've heard people say, including honorable members of the National Assembly, that we are not doing the CVR as provided by law, continuous voter registration on a continuous basis. We are doing the registration intermittently. It is the cost implication of doing so. I heard members of the National Assembly say that why can't we do the registration at polling unit level? Over 176,000 polling units. If you deploy 2 staff, forget about logistics and security, just 2 officials, and you pay them 5,000 naira per day, and they are complaining. It means 176,000 times 2. By the time you add it times 10,000, we'll be spending hundreds of millions every day. In fact, the last calculation I made is if we are to do it for 2 years at polling unit level, it will cost over 2 trillion to register voters. The nation cannot spend all its resources on election, for God's sake. But the most important thing is to give citizens the opportunity to register at whatever level you do it. I think, okay, and then finally, Chairman, on this percentage of voter turnout. Voter turnout is a function of so many factors, not just the quality of the voters register. We engage stakeholders, and sometimes we hear from them. We go to the field and ask people questions, and they will tell you that the last time somebody representing my constituency visited 10 years ago, he said they are going to do the primary school in the village. 4 years later, another election comes, the primary school is not done. And the person now goes back to say, please, if I elect me again, I will do the primary school. Nothing is this issue of funding, starting with the budget for this year. You know, this is something we have discussed over and over and over, and we'll continue to discuss. It's an envelope budget. 40 billion was allocated to INEC for 2024. Our statutory budget for 2023, statutory budget was 50 billion, and then supplementary of 18 billion added, so it's 68 in 2023. And how the budget suddenly dropped from 68 to 40 in 2024 is a matter that we have been making representation to you. So we'll continue to discuss on how this can be addressed. On the cleaning up of the data, sorry, Honorable, you suggested that we should do what to clean up the data?
NIN number.
Oh, the NIN number.
Yes.
You see, it's a very interesting thing. When INEC started with the biometric register of voters, we are not capturing all 10 fingers initially. It was because of our collaboration with NIMC that we started capturing the 10 fingers. The ultimate objective is to see how we can migrate that data to a central repository called the National Identity Management Commission for the purpose of issuing the National Identity Card. If you look at the law establishing NIMC, virtually all members of the board are ex officio. And the first agency listed as a member of the board of NIMC is INEC. So we are members of the board of NIMC, and we have been relating and interacting with them. And some people have been saying that why should the law in Nigeria confine the voter to only the place where he or she is registered? And this leads to so many Nigerians being disenfranchised. I can't vote in an election. I didn't register in Abuja. I happen to be in Abuja during elections, I can't. Civil society organizations that monitor, observe elections don't vote. The media, because journalists are deployed to so many places, they don't vote. Security personnel deployed from one state to another for election duty don't vote. So why can't we make it in such a way that citizens can vote in any part of the country? It is only a matter of time. And that links neatly with the issue of NIMSI. You know, NIMSI registration has no age limit. So they register Nigerians. In our own case, the universal franchise is 18 years. So it's only those who are 18 that can vote. So we need to work with NIMSI to see how we can address this lacuna. That's one. Two, we need to work with the National Population Commission, to continue to work with the National Population Commission on the issue of birth and death, particularly death for the cleaning up of the register. Remember, the National Population Commission is the nation's registrar of birth and death. We had a meeting with them. They gave us some data of dead persons across the states, but I'm sorry to say that the data was not usable. Instead, they will give you the number of people that are dead. How many of them are registered voters? We don't know. What are their ages? We don't know what their ages are. So we said we should set up a technical team, INEC and the Population Commission, to see how we can develop a template that will lead to the generation of usable data. We also need your support as members of the National Assembly and as leaders in your own right, where there are persons that are dead. Please draw the attention of the Commission so that we can null them from the register of voters. Part of the problem we face is if you display the register for claims and objections and you ask citizens to now tell you those who are dead, some people will come and tell you that these people are dead. But what is the evidence that they are dead? In some cases, they bring funeral brochure. In some places, people die at home and are buried. So the danger is the typical Nigerian attitude. There was an instance when, after party primaries, we published the final list of candidates. The only other condition under which a political party can replace a candidate is in the event of death. Long ago, several years ago, one party wrote us to say that his candidate was dead. They submitted a death certificate from a government hospital. They submitted a letter from the family confirming that he was dead. There was an affidavit of court that the person was dead. But just before the commission substituted him, the man turned up to say he was alive. So we have to be very careful, because some people may just disenfranchise us as citizens by misleading the commission that they are dead when they are not dead. So there are so many issues to consider. It's not like a straightforward thing. Then can we do auto registration? I think this is related to what the distinguished chair Senate said, that when people turn of age, they just go and register, and then there you have the register of voters. All these are possibilities. But I want Nigerians, and this is my final submission, distinguished senators, honorable members, I want Nigerians to appreciate this. A few years ago, and it happened in my lifetime, with every general election, citizens were called out to go and register. The last commission stopped it by introducing the biometric register of voters. And we also introduced the permanent voters card, so that once you are registered, you don't have to re-register again. We have the details. It's only persons that were not registered before that can now go and register. That's one. Number two, so having achieved the biometric registration of voters, the second stage is the biometric accreditation of voters. We have achieved the biometric accreditation of voters using the fingerprints and the facial. The next stage is to perfect the electronic transmission of results. That is where we are. Once we perfect this, the three processes will coalesce into a box called electronic voting machine, which accredits, the register is there, it accredits voters, and it transmits election results. So we are almost there. On the basis of, on a scale of 1 to 100, we have actually achieved 75% of the journey towards that. So sometimes the changes happen before our own eyes, but often we don't sit back and reflect to appreciate the changes introduced. But we'll continue to do what we can to improve the processes. We simply can't give up. It's our country. We can't give up. I think I've answered all the questions. Thank you very much, distinguished. Thank you. Thank you.